Good morning, everyone. There's a number of people still logging in, but I think we'll just get going here. Good morning. So welcome to this FinanceMalta webinar, which is on the topic of cybersecurity. As you all know, I'm Vanessa McDonald, and I'm very happy to have with us two of the representatives from the Cybersecurity National Coordination Center at MITA, the government IT agency. And we have with us Katia Bonello. Katia, good morning. She's the project manager for this particular Cyber+ALT scheme. And we also have with us Martina Bonanno, who is the analyst who's dealing with this particular project. So the project was launched a few weeks ago. There were a number of cutoff dates for calls for people interested in participating in the scheme. And over the next hour, we'll be going through the scheme where you can find out more information about it. And also you will have the chance to ask questions in the chat of this particular webinar. It is being recorded and it will be available on the FinanceMalta social media and website later on. So even if you're going to be bombarded with a whole bunch of numbers and so on, the presentation that is going to be shown to you and explained to you is also on the NCC website. So anything that you require, don't worry, you can actually focus right now on the details of this super interesting scheme. So Katia, perhaps I can start with you and invite you to tell us a little bit more about the NCC and how it was all set up, especially in the EU context.
So first of all, good morning, Vanessa, and good morning to all our followers this morning. So basically, the NCC and MITA. So the NCC is part of MITA. NCC stands for the National Cybersecurity Coordination Center. Basically, an EU regulation came into force back in June 2021, whereby every member state was mandated to have its own National Cybersecurity Coordination Center, reporting to the EU Competence Center. Given MITA's remit, this role was assigned to MITA to act as the NCC. And the scope why the EU felt the need to set these centers was basically because we know cybersecurity, there are limited resources, and hence they want to maximize the capabilities and the capacities. Also, most of the technologies come outside from the EU, and they want to boost products and services coming from the EU. As an NCC, we are actively working on three fronts. Basically, since January of this year, we have been working very hard to build the national cybersecurity community. We have organized already various activities, so I encourage anyone on this call who has interest or expertise in cybersecurity to join the community as we share a lot of information. Another thing we are focusing on is EU funding. Lately, there have been various regulations, legislations, and acts related to cyber, the security that must be implemented also nationally. Obviously, to implement such a lot of funds are required, and hence it's very important to look at the EU funding opportunities that there are available. And coming on this scheme, basically there was a call. As an NCC, we applied for this call. We managed to get a pot of money. Martina will be delving further into this. And this money we will be cascading it to the local sector, specifically to the SMEs.
For the purpose of this actual call, can you just remind us what the definition is of an SME?
Yes, the definition of an SME is defined based on turnover and the number of employees. And the definition is not something that we came up with, but it's an EU definition. Also in our documentation, Martina will be referring to, there's also the specific thresholds of what makes a micro, small, or medium SME. That's all from my end.
So this Cyber+ALT program scheme that you're coming up with is not something which is unique to Malta. Is it being replicated in other member states as well?
So basically, the school, any NCC had the opportunity to apply for. We saw a great opportunity for Malta, and we applied for it. And basically, the call wanted to address the uptake of state-of-the-art cybersecurity solutions. So definitely, there are similar schemes in other member states, but obviously we have built this scheme specifically for the needs of the local sector, and hence why previous to building these specifications of the scheme, we conducted a study amongst SMEs to see what are their needs, so that we could build a relevant scheme.
Fantastic. Perhaps we can go over to Martina now. And Martina, you can you already have done this presentation. As I said, it's already on your website for anyone who'd actually like to download the presentation itself. But Martina, perhaps you can guide us through it. Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this call. So let me start by sharing my screen. Okay. 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 So, so this is the Cyber+ALT scheme, and today I will be going through some high-level notes on this scheme, which I hope to give you some further insights and possibly further assist you in the writing of your application form. So let me start with the scope of the scheme. So this scheme intends to assist, as Scott already said, small and medium-sized enterprises to part finance investment in cybersecurity. So this will this intends to enhance their overall level of security and resilience in order to be in a better position to handle cyber threats, and also be more proactive to meet future challenges. And looking into it even more holistically, the Cyber+ALT scheme will improve the capacity of these locally established enterprises, and also increase the level of investment in cybersecurity locally. So this sorry. Give me a minute.
I can take over while Martina recovers. So the overall budget is that of 2 million, whereby 1 million will be funded by the EU, and the other 1 million will be coming from national funds. So basically, the amount, the aid intensity is at 80%, whereby maximum permissible grant is set at 60K. And to be eligible for the funding, one of the criteria is that the total project value must be 20K or over. Now, an interesting thing about the scheme is how the disbursement of funds will take place. It will take place in 2 phases, whereby, first of all, once the grant agreement is signed, we'll be giving 20% free the financing, and this will definitely be a starter for the SME. And then the remaining 80% will be reimbursed upon completion of the project. Here, definitely we have to confirm that whatever has been submitted in the initial proposal has been checked. And once that is done, then we'll be reimbursing the remaining 80%. To notice that most of the schemes don't offer this pre-financing opportunity. So this is something definitely remarkable about this scheme. Maybe Martina, you want to take over now?
Yes, apologies about that. So yes, I can move on to the next slide. So with regards to the timeframes, this scheme operates through a number of open rolling calls, whereby we have made available 4 cutoff dates, with the first one being last week, so it closed. And in that regard, we've received multiple applications. However, there are still funds available. So I encourage everyone that has not applied yet to submit their application as earliest as possible. Obviously, these funds are subject to first come, first served. So the earlier you submit your application, the more chance you have to secure these funds. Additionally, one point to note is that through this open rolling call sort of process, it is possible for sort of rejected applications to have feedback on what was rejected and sort of work on that, and they can resubmit. So having or submitting earlier, they can get the chance to submit again. The scheme will then close on the 29th of December, so latest they can submit is 29 December, and projects, all eligible projects, must have to be completed by not later than 30th September. Eligible activities, so these are the activities for which eligible costs must be related, and there are cybersecurity solutions, hardware, subscription fees, license fees, managed services, internal training and implementation. The first 2, which are being highlighted with an asterisk, are subject to depreciation. And one thing to note is that for this scheme, sort of the cybersecurity solution has to be the focus of the project, and the hardware, subscription fees, internal training and implementation would have to complement the cybersecurity solutions. So, for example, the internal training would have to be specifically on aiding the implementation of the cybersecurity solution. So further on the depreciation, just to give you sort of a clear example of how this depreciation is being worked out in the application form that the applicants would have to submit through, gives the facility to have this automated. And here they would have to enter eligible purchase costs. Next to it, they would have to enter the useful life of assets. So this must be according to the organization's accounting practices, and automatically through the formula, it will calculate the eligible depreciable costs. So on the side, as you can see, the formula that is being used for the scheme is eligible purchase cost divided by useful life of asset, and everything times 2. So, okay, investment areas. So these investment areas are meant for the projects So in this regard, the project would have to tackle at least one of the investment areas. And the investment areas are vulnerability management, threat detection and response, enhanced cloud-based platform security, end-to-end data protection, and identity and access management. These are some examples of eligible cybersecurity solutions that are in line with the investment areas, so they are eligible under the Cyber+ALT scheme. How to apply? So to assist also in the writing of the application, we have made available 4 documents. These are very exhaustive and include all the information required to write a very successful application form. So I highly encourage everyone that is interested in applying to go through all the 4 documents. These are accessible both from the website, the NCC website, as well as the application form. So to complement that, on the application form, you will also find the forms that are required to be attached in the application form. You can find that online, that applications would have to be filled in and submitted online only. So if I can show the landing page, just to give you a clearer idea. So this is the NCC website. Okay. So here we have made available some general information. So as Vanessa has also mentioned, we've recently had an information session for which we have published the recording as well as the slide decks. So these are available here. The next deadline and all the cutoff dates have been made available here. From this link, you can access the application portal. So through the application portal, you would have to fill in the application form and submit. And here we've made available the guidance, the documents, or the documents are available there. However, going further into the application form, the portal, you will find some further documents there. And some contact details here and also here. So just an overall on the documentation and also on the application portal, sort of to those that are a bit more experienced with applying for funds, also nationally, the documents and the application form are quite in line with other schemes, sort of the ones you can find on funded.eu. So we've made sure to have something that the public is already aware of. So let me go back to the presentation. Okay. Okay, so moving forward. Okay. So any submitted applications after the cutoff date, at the cutoff date, they will be evaluated, and they will be evaluated by an independent project selection committee. So this is independent from the NCC and MITA. And the project selection committee will be evaluating based on 2 different criteria. So the gateway criteria, which includes having a complete application, whether the undertaking is eligible, whether the actions and activities are eligible, and match financing. So this would have to be 100% complete. And the selection criteria based on project excellence, impact and sustainability, and project risk assessment. And this would have to be at least 50%. And Following this evaluation, MITA through the NCC will be contacting the respective applicants on the outcome. Implementation. So, following the projects being successful, the application sort of would have been accepted. A grant agreement would have to be signed between MITA and the beneficiary, and this will kick off, as previously mentioned also by Katja, the pre-financing, and it will kick off the project. And once the project is kicked off, we have made available a dedicated NCC funding management portal, which will also help the beneficiaries keep track of their projects, and projects are subject to spot checks and audits. Support lines. So we welcome any questions on the scheme. We highly encourage to get back to us with any queries, should there be any. We've made available 2 support lines, so you can contact directly Servizi Europei Malta on any queries specifically on the application form, so they can assist you with filling of the application form if you have any queries with the system. And you can direct any general queries to ncc.mita@gov.mt. So any queries on the scheme in general, if anything is eligible, any clarifications, please let us know. We are ready to help. Obviously, we've been getting quite an influx of queries, so please make sure to go over the documentation. As I've previously mentioned, the documentation is quite important. So even when we are getting back to you, we are always referring to the documentation. So it is important, and it will also aid us with getting back to everyone. So, but we will make sure to get back to everyone as soon as possible. So that's all from my end.
Thank you very much, Martina. Perhaps we'll start going through the questions. Just to remind everyone, so the next cut-off date is September the 14th. All the schemes will have to close on the 29th of December 2023. That's the last date. But the projects have to be done and ready by the 30th of September 2024. I know we have a question about that, so I'm hoping that that would be sufficient for your question. We also have another question for you, which is, what is matched finance underneath your gateway criteria? You recommended that one of the 100% must be fulfilled is match finance. Can you tell us what that refers to?
So I can answer that, Vanessa. So we will be funding 80% of the project value up to 60K. The rest must be financed by the SME. So the SME has to prove that he can match the remaining funds to be able to implement the project. We are doing this to ensure that there is ownership from the side of the business, and basically that's it.
Fantastic. So another question, can people apply for this retrospectively? In other words, for projects which they've already started or perhaps even completed?
That's a very good question. So the project must start only once the grant agreement has been signed. So we are not financing any past activities. Any activity has to start from grant agreement date onwards. Okay.
Another question with regards to who is eligible. Are all activities included? And also, what about voluntary companies? Can they also apply for this scheme?
So regarding who is eligible, as we already referred to, an SME according to the EU definition of an SME. A definition which explains thresholds with respect to number of employees and turnover. Regarding eligible activities, as Martina already went through, there are 5 activities, and which are, maybe if I had to go again through them, there is the solution, which is the main thing, and the other components have to complement the solution. So if there is any hardware involved, any training involved, implementation costs, and also any license fees, and also managed services. This is something, again, remarkable about the schemes. Not so many schemes include also financing of manageable services. Anyone who works in this business now knows that most of the services are being offered in a managed way. So definitely the activities must be that, and they must meet one or more of the areas that also Martina mentioned, which is the vulnerability management. Maybe the Martina view can share again that slide for our audience to have a look at. But there are 5 areas, and the solution must meet one or more. No need to meet all of them, but at least one of them must be met.
And what about the economic sectors? I mean, tourism, financial services, gaming, and so on. Who is eligible?
So in the documentation, Martina also referred to, there are any exclusions, there are specific exclusions, but these are not many. Basically, specific activities are so, if, for example, there is already a program financing a particular sector, mentioning the agriculture, so we are not focusing there. But for the rest, yes, they are included. And that's why we ask specifically for the NACE code, so that we can identify the type of activity that they conduct.
We have another question here. Obviously, people are thanking you for organizing and giving this fantastic presentation, because it's proving to be extremely useful. Somebody wanted to know whether there were plans to widen the investment areas at a later stage of the scheme.
So at this point in time, no, the scheme is this. Basically, this is a scheme that we also have communicated with the EU. So the EU gave us these funds based on the parameters, but definitely the NCC is on the lookout for other EU funds that it can apply for to eventually cascade to the local market.
Fantastic. What about the activity? Where does the activity have to be taking place? Does it have to be in Malta or completely in Malta?
So the SME has to be locally established. So giving that answer, yes and no, has to be completely, not completely in Malta. We obviously have to understand the context, the solution, but definitely there must be a benefit for Malta.
Yes, okay, so, and earlier on, sorry, I realized that we didn't get the answer about the voluntary organizations. Does that also apply as long as there's some kind of economic activity in Malta, or?
Yes, it depends, because there are some voluntary organizations that will fit in. But again, we have to see that case in particular. And as Martina mentioned, the documentation, there is a clear definition of who can apply and who not.
Can I just ask a general question? Obviously, this was aimed at SMEs, but are SMEs really where the risks are when it comes to cybersecurity?
So basically, we have to consider the Maltese, the economy, basically a large chunk of is made up of SMEs. So we can appreciate the importance that SMEs have on the economy. The SMEs form part of the supply chain. So the SME can basically be a target to get to the big fish. So SMEs are very important. Also, most likely they are the ones that have limited funding they're available. So the intent of this scheme was to uplift them in order that they can uplift their cybersecurity posture, and at the end they will be uplifting the cybersecurity posture of Malta.
We've been doing a number of podcasts and so on about the Digital Operational Resilience Act, which is specific obviously for financial services. But obviously this is, again, the level of awareness now on the risks associated with cyber attacks, whether it is, with regards to people's data, whether it's regards to operational resilience and so on. So it's obviously very, very, very topical at the moment. We have another question here. Somebody's asking whether the self-employed, as opposed to a company, are also entitled to apply.
Yes, they are. As long as there is a VAT number, yes, they are.
Fantastic. So from my side, I think we've gone through pretty much all of the questions that we had. I'm not quite sure if there are any other questions from the audience or whether you have sufficient information. But I think that your presentation must have been very good. It's fantastic that we had this interest and that we had all of the questions. We've got the email address, and obviously, as Martina said, all the information is very readily available on their excellent website, which really has taken into account all the different aspects which people might want. So if there's nothing else from the audience, it's pointless to keep anyone for too much more time. And of course, we will be posting the recording on our social media later on. Well done to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.